And we have another very special guest who's come down from India. Viral Thakker, partner and climate leader of Deloitte. He's here in person. Welcome, Viral. He, in fact, leads Deloitte's sustainability and climate strategic growth offering practice for South Asia. He also brings in a multidisciplinary solutions for climate and sustainability initiatives. And I believe you also, he consults as well. That's his sort of prime job. So over to you. And so just sort of a short note here that this is the third time that Viral has come here presenting a very unique case study. So we really appreciate it, Viral, that you actually come here and tell us what's really going on in India with smallholder farmers, with pollution, with food, with a business model, and of course, agriculture and I think, or at least technology. Over to you.
Thank you, Rupali. So looks like at least one person's being paying attention. Really, honestly, it's a pleasure, truly a pleasure to be here. I use this opportunity every year to almost come and present a report card of what we've done the previous cycle. So as Rupali said, it's my third visit to WISPY, an absolute pleasure. So thank you very much for having me here. So this is where I present my report card. So for those of you who haven't heard this story before, I'll do a quick recap, and I'm sorry it's a repeat for many of you, so please bear with me. So the broad problem statement is this: every year in North India, across the states of Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, and Madhya Pradesh now, farmers, after the paddy harvest, essentially burn a vast majority of the agriculture residue, or what we call stubble. Now, you may wonder why does that happen? So the problem is this: for these farmers, sorry, it's a busy slide. I'll use, but I can narrate this without the slides. So for these farmers, and more than half of these farmers are what we call small and marginal farmers, which means that their land holdings are really, really small, which means that they cannot afford the equipment that you need to process that agri residue. And all of you will know that an acre of rice or paddy farm produces about 3 tons of agri residue, right? So 3 tons of this stubble must be processed. And they take 2 cycles. So to Klaus's point earlier, it's not very, diversified. They produce paddy in fall and wheat in the spring season, which means that they have a 30-day window within which to basically take care of the farm. Because they, most of them cannot afford the equipment to process, which is typically balers and tractors and, hay rakes and so on. They believe that burning it is the most easiest option, which is true. But there's obviously a slight flaw in this story, because controlled burning or pyrolysis might be slightly better because it creates biochar, but that's also debatable. Open burning definitely does not. In fact, it creates a lot of pollution in North India. So those of you who might be traveling to Delhi in fall will experience a lot of haze and smog. But the health impact is staggering, right? Cumulative health impact is roughly 15 million disability adjusted life years in the country, right? It's like saying 200,000 people are dying every year for something that's completely preventable, right? So that's really the biggest impact and the biggest motivation for looking at this. North India has about 80 to 90,000 distinct fire events, and roughly 13 million tons of this agri residue gets burnt, right? So that's really the scale and size of the problem. So that's the background. So what did we do? So we actually went to the state of Haryana to say, can we try something out? Can we bring technology and other interventions to try and see if we can help solve the problem? So they said, yes, why not? Go ahead. So we did a pilot in 6 villages. By the way, spent a lot of time talking to the farmers. What is it that you do and why do you burn, etc. Which is where we discovered some of these things. So the solution was, I think, relatively simple. We built a platform, think Uber for farmers, right? So a platform that brings farmers together with people who have equipment. And the platform has about 5,000 distinct farmers who have their equipment listed on the platform. And that's one part of the story. Second was to convince the farmers that why is it important for you to not burn and take advantage of the platform. And by the way, this agri residue or stubble is actually monetizable, right? So you can actually sell it. It sells for anywhere between 1,500 to 2,000 rupees a ton, which is small but not bad, right? It's money for something that is absolutely a waste. So that's the second part of the story, where we tried to go door to door, convince the farmers. The third part of the solution, we did prime the system with some equipment that we donated. But more importantly, we've been focusing on helping build downstream connections, which means connecting the farmers to downstream users of this agri residue for things like compressed biogas or ethanol, etc., etc. So, broadly, the impacts were in Haryana, starting with a pilot in 6 villages. That first year, we saw about 70% reduction in fires for those 70 villages. We scaled that in 2023 to 666 villages, which had a reduction of about 54% that year. And then last year, in 2024, we went to 441 villages. You might say, why is there a drop? Because the fires are fewer, so we don't have to go to as many villages. And last year, again, there was a further 45% reduction. So Haryana has been reasonably successful, and it's a good test case. In fact, Indian Oil has an ethanol refinery in a place called Panipat. 20% of the feedstock for that bioethanol refinery came from this plant, came from this program, right? So that's something that they've acknowledged. And by the way, we worked very closely with the local administration, trying to see what specific messages needed to be given in the local environment. And by the way, all of this work has been pro bono from our side, right? Just trying to see what we can do almost as a challenge. Last year, we also went to a neighboring state called Punjab. Punjab is really where the problem is the biggest because the number of fires are much larger, and managing that change has been substantial. So we had a pilot in about 15 villages in a district called Patiala, which then had a reduction of about 54%, right? Again, you may say only 54%, but it's still progress in the right direction. So we'll take that as a win. Broadly, there are lessons that we are learning every year and then refining the strategy. For us, cumulatively, there has been a reduction of about 500,000 tons of stubble that we've prevented from burning, number one. Number two, roughly just under 1 million tons of CO2 equivalent saved because you prevented the burning of the fire. And if you translate those reduction in fires to the number of disability adjusted life years, it roughly translates to 10,000 odd lives that have been saved, right? So beyond beyond just the economics, and by the way, an increase in income for the farmers as well. So beyond this, what has been the story, right? So we think at an aggregate level, there is a substantial biofuels opportunity for India. And a case in point is something called sustainable aviation fuel. Most of you will know this, but decarbonizing aviation is really hard. One of the transition pathways is via sustainable aviation fuel, which is where the fuel is derived from, non-fossil based sources. Different countries and different locations have different feedstock options. Europe has a substantial used cooking oil or animal fat as a feedstock or as a raw material. And then some other parts have, Europe is also moving towards power to liquid as an option. But a big opportunity for India is in leveraging this agri residue India produces 245 million tons of agri residue every year. Even if you repurpose 30% of that, you can essentially create 7.5 of sustainable aviation fuel. This is through what's called the alcohol to jet process, which many of you might be familiar with. Now, why is this important? India's current aviation turbine fuel needs are roughly 4 to 4.5 million tons. By 2030, it could become 8 million tons, right? And while SAF is usually rated for no more than 50% of your blending needs, this itself could be a large opportunity to supply to the local ecosystem. But also importantly, it's something that can also be exported, right? So a role that India can play in not just decarbonizing its own aviation, but also supporting decarbonizing of aviation in other markets. So that's really the opportunity. For farmers, this creates 10 to 15% additional income generation, right? So not only is it good for the environment, it's also something where they make more money by not burning and selling their stubble to the producers or processors. So that's really the business opportunity that we've been talking about. One of the things that we've also then said is that there needs to be a broad, what we call an open circular biofuels network that might be important. I think the Indian ambassador talked about it earlier in his speech about some of the digital public infrastructure type initiatives. So we've been engaging with the founders of Beacon Protocol, and I think Sujit was here 2 years ago. So it's a nod to what they've done, but we're trying to apply those principles and collaborating with Beacon to see if some sort of an open network could then unlock some of the bottlenecks in storage and transportation of and processing of stubble. Why? Because stubble is a high volume, low calorific value feedstock, right? So you do want it to be optimized so as to gain economies of scale. So that's my report card for the year. I hope to be back next year, and I hope to report continued progress. Thank you.